welcome to this very special 2021 predictions for the year episode. Yes, so we have three of our regulars in this week: Joe, Chris, and Miguel, and we've all come up with a list of predictions for what we think is going to happen in the year of tech and in the year of more geared towards game development. And so we're going to try and go through and discuss as many as we can before within the hour. So to start with, I'm going to go anti-clockwise and bring in so the first person will make their prediction, and then we'll discuss. Okay, so to start with, I would like to ask Chris if you could give us your first prediction.
Okay, well, my first is that the majority of smaller dev studios are going to go fully remote permanently this year. We've seen during the last year that most of our work can be done that way. It's only really like motion capture that requires people to be physically present for game development. So the majority of our work can be done remotely, and for smaller studios, it opens up a much bigger talent pool. It cuts out commuting and so on. The only downside I can see for larger studios, if they've got motion capture facilities and things like that, they will, and significant investment into offices and such like, they are probably going to want to try to maintain the old way of doing things for longer because they've got more invested in it. But certainly I think most indie studios and medium-sized studios are going to be fully remote if they're not already.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Joe, what do you think? I've got my own position on this, but I want to throw it out to everyone else first.
I think it's going to be okay for the most part, but I think the bigger studios, I think as an outsider, because obviously I don't know if people know I'm not actually a game developer, I'm just the editor, but as an outsider, I think it might open up more chances to intercept data and maybe leak stuff from the bigger developers. Whereas if it's all internal, it's more closed and it's more of the internal servers, where if it goes remote, what's to stop someone jacking in and taking footage? Or I don't know. I'm not a hacker. I don't know, but there's more of a chance.
Do you have so Joe? Do you have much experience working in offices? Or I know we're all locked at home at the moment, but outside of this, I'm interested where your background is.
Worked in an office, no, but I've done a lot of remote work, so yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, right. So, what do you think, Gal?
I think for cost purpose, it makes sense, right? Because especially it's a high risk adventure to start an indie studio, and then the last thing you want to care about is like an office bill, and then people are not in the office. So it makes sense from a financial perspective, but I also think it comes with a cost, and the cost is basically collaboration is much harder. Obviously, it's all possible via, as we all did in the past year, but certain creative processes might not be possible, like whiteboard sessions, or some ideas might not even come up when working remotely. That's just a prediction. Yeah.
My thoughts are torn because I'm really quite sick of working on my own. So like, I'm sort of really craving going back to an office and seeing people. And my partner works for Google, and they're shutting down their offices in London until pretty much the end of the year, and then they're kind of making it optional. But they see a real value in having people in the same place, and I do as well. But I agree, the cost savings and the travel. I mean, the more interesting point is, Chris, that's kind of how you run your company, isn't it? I mean, it is now.
Yeah, I mean, that's ironically, I thought that lockdown would like hardly affect us. It did through roundabout means, but it didn't change our working processes particularly. Yeah, I mean, I deliberately set up my company as a remote company because it saves the office costs. It meant that I could hire anybody I wanted anywhere in the world. Although I've got to admit that Brexit kind of put me off hiring people overseas because I just didn't know what might go wrong after we exited. But that hopefully that will. Now that we know what the deal is, then we can like work with that, and that means that the talent pool is wide open again. There's other studios that have been fully remote for several years already. So Frictional have been fully remote from the beginning. Pretty sure Roll. I've forgotten the name. Roll 7. Roll 7. I think they're pretty fully remote. Yeah. And I'm sure there's others that I can't think of. But I think Joe's right about the security implications. This is why I think probably it's another contributing factor to the bigger studios wanting to, keep people in an office where they have control of the hardware, especially if they've got early access to sort of pre-release hardware. That's obviously an issue, and that's going to be tricky to manage if you've got to send it off to people's homes.
It's a good point. Like, yeah.
Go on.
It just reminds me of the Sea of Thieves testing they did on Xbox, where they had like 200 Xboxes there to do the widespread testing. And I see difficulties like sending 200 Xboxes around,
Yeah, there is like NDA problems as well, because I keep getting kicked out of rooms because there's like in my own house there's sort of secure meetings going on that I'm not allowed to listen to and like that. So it's going to be very hard, not even from a hacking point of view. I think you can put stuff in, you can get pretty secure on sort of hacking. You can never be 100%, but anyone who's connected to the internet, but just trying to keep something quiet when everyone's got their kids stuck at home and sort of stuff like that is yeah. So yeah, I mean, my opinion generally is it's going to happen, and it's so much more viable. But I regret the dream of, I always had the image of like, you hear the old stories of people getting together and working in a sort of small room in a warehouse and putting a game together, and there's a romance of an actual like humans meeting each other in person. So has anyone here met anyone else here in meet space?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I mean, this is a special environment, but yeah, it's definitely doable, and yeah, and slightly depressing.
You lose the whole, like, if you're working on something, you're struggling with something minor or whatever, you could make next to you, can you just help me with this? You can't do that remotely. You got to then sort of save it, send it off, go, can you help me figure this out? And then they've got to download it. And the internet's not quite there yet for most people as well.
I would disagree there, because I think it's actually easier, unless they literally happened to be sat right next to you, because you can just call someone up, share your screen, and in Meet Space, unless they happen to be sat right beside you, you've got to get up and walk to sort of like across the room, or go to like upper floor or something like that. I mean, from working in a large studio, somebody being on a different floor of the building might as well have been at home, because unless you actually fancy to stretch your legs, it's too much effort to actually get up and go and talk to them. You would just like fling them an email.
Yeah, I suppose you've got a point. There is
slightly
software that does remote. Okay.
Yeah. So what did you say?
I slightly disagree there.
Right. All I was saying was there is software out there that does, you can do remote control over someone's computer. So yeah, I see Chris's point of view.
Yeah. Sorry, Miguel?
I have to say I disagree on it a bit, because I experience it every day. And I think one problem is with remote work in general compared to office work is the concept of like micro, or like the moment before you approach someone, you, for example, can see what they work on by looking. For example, you can see their screen. You can, for example, see if they are like busy or in the zone, or if they are like available. And just phoning someone up, it's a stress. It produces stress, right? And that every day can definitely also harm the team culture to some extent.
Yeah, I think you're right about it's good to be able to read someone's body language and tell if they're what sort of mood they're in before you speak to them. I don't know how often people would actually like cross the room to go and talk to someone and then change their mind and go back in reality, though. And I think if you're working with, it depends on the size of the team. I've been working remotely with a small team, and so we are constantly talking to each other. So having a call from a member of my team is not at all stressful in the same way that having a call from somebody that like called to pitch something or something, that would be a big stress, because it's somebody that I don't know very well, and like there's a lot riding on it, and so on. That sort of call is stressful. But a quick just jumping on Discord to sort of like discuss the sort of like the potential solutions to a particular problem with a game mechanic, that's quite easy and frictionless, as everybody's all sat at their desks already. So I've found it. Of course, I'm biased because I have my family in the house with me, so I have people around me in meet space as well as working remotely with a team and so on. I can imagine for people who are living alone, that's a very different feeling, and that working with a team remotely is no replacement for real human contact. But if you have human contact in your household, then I think that professional connections over the internet are fine.
There's a brilliant GDC talk on it where they have, I think they have a Slack channel, or they have everyone in their team. They have an open channel where you can hear each other talk, which you can either like when you want to be social, you can go sit on that channel, and when you don't want to be social, you can just come out of it. It's definitely doable. Anyway, guys, I think we should move on. We're not going to get any exclusive. I reckon you're right, personally, Chris. I just despair slightly at the point that I'll never have the proper dream of basement, a group of friends in a basement. So let's move on to the next topic. So Miguel, you're up.
Yeah, my next, or my topic is basically Nvidia's new AI technology that is for video calls. It's quite vague, because they basically published a paper and they describe the prototype they built. And why I predict this for 2021 is, right, because we are all moving into remote work, and we all might or might not have experienced the poor internet connections and video quality issues, and this typical like, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself? This kind of stuff, right? And the technology of Nvidia basically allows, through machine learning, to show 4K or like super high resolution video and audio quality via AI. So it basically sends almost no data over the network, and the AI locally on your laptop basically is able to show like a super high quality video and audio quality. And And I think this will significantly improve the remote experience. It kind of goes into the previous point we talked about, but that's like my prediction, that they make it commercially available, and that this will change things for everyone.
Will they be able to give you a shave? Will they be
No.
able to like? Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I think I'm not sure that I want to be on 4K into my colleagues' workrooms, because it's 1080p is kind of plenty crisp enough. I know that a number of when HD first came out, a number of TV actors were dismayed, because it meant that like you could see every wrinkle and blemish on an actor's face when they were in close up. So yeah, that's it's an interesting one. Certainly, bandwidth improvements. I'm all for those. I'm not convinced that 4K is necessary for much, really, unless you have a screen the size of your wall.
But Chris, you're missing out on the point that this isn't properly what you look like. This is the computer machine learning and generating. So therefore, surely it can be a bit more generous.
Yeah, I think you can tune it with filters.
See, that would be interesting. I mean, you could get some interest, because we've already seen sort of people using like comedy Snapchat filters and things a lot. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of filters an AI system might be able to apply. I can see that being fun.
Yeah, but if it could be just a slight one, just if it was subtle enough that you didn't have to like wash your face in the morning and come to work looking sort of like, because I mean I spend half my life now in pajamas, so it's sort of like, if it could just put a suit on me or something, I'd
just a little bit of David Beckham and a little bit of Tom Cruise, you know, just an inch.
It's the new virtual world we live in.
That, I mean, so extrapolating that into the distant future, that's the cyberpunk ideal, isn't it? Where you have a completely virtual avatar that is that you can customize to look like whatever you want, and it's fully convincing. I think an AI avatar is probably going to be more effective than like a Snapchat filter where you're trying to procedurally track cat ears onto a human head and so on. That's stuff. There's always going to be challenges with tracking and integrating that and so on, or even with like VR eye tracking and lip reading and stuff like that. But if it's basically an AI taking your video and then like just treating that to make it look like a different, basically if you're just live deep faking yourself into a different avatar, that I think is going to be a lot more convincing than any sort of like CG avatar that we currently use in video games. So I can see that being an interesting point. It does open the door to deep faking yourself to be a different person. So that's the sort of thing that we might need to start seeing legislation about.
It's going to happen.
There's no technical reason. There's no technical reason why that couldn't be done.
Yeah, no, just
especially also the voice deepfake is scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's much further ahead as the face deepfake. Voice deepfakes are basically almost perfect. You can't tell the difference. It's insane.
Have you seen the South Park one? They brought Trump out South Park. That was brilliant. The technology is so powerful. But yeah, just basically deep faking yourself onto yourself, but at your best. Is
this the Nvidia Maxine? Is this technology called Nvidia Maxine, or the working title of it?
I don't know. I can't remember. I saw it like a month ago.
So I think I've seen it, and it is it is more or less deep faking your face. Like they're saying, if someone sat like this sideways, it can then readjust it to face forwards, and there's no intervention from yourself. It'll just do it for you. So I think I have seen a demo of it. Yeah.
There's some stuff on the web about it, so we could certainly pop a link in the show notes.
Yeah. Anyway, we should get back. We should move on. Joe, what do you have for us?
Events this year, I think, are going to continue to be digital, unfortunately. Like, so there's going to be no hands-on for new games, and especially the indie devs, they can't really showcase their games. So we might end up seeing another summer of games demo thing, or similar to that. That's my theory.
I think that's quite likely. What do you guys?
What do you think about the tooling?
I'll be honest. Say that again, sorry.
What do you think about the tooling in terms of what is available in order to facilitate virtual conferences?
I don't know. I mean, I just liked playing games, and giving feedback. I've done that at events almost every year. And then last year, obviously, there was the demos on Steam. There was some on Xbox, but I think I don't know how they would make it more. I don't know how to do more of them, but I think, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how they'd do it, to be honest.
It's a tricky one. One of the things that I've certainly missed over 2020 has been actually going to like trade shows, playing games, meeting with people, pitching and stuff like that. It's very hard to replicate the experience of just casually mingling with people and meeting new people and sort of like joining a conversation. There are things like GatherTown, which gives you a little kind of top-down like sprite game engine to wander around, and then when you get to close to another person's sprite, then it links you up with video chat. It's an interesting solution. I feel like it nearly works, but you can if you get a big crowd of people, you can end up with a cluster of people where the people in the middle can hear everybody, and the people out on the fringes can only hear the people in the middle.
Do you think VR is going to be the answer to that?
It could be. I mean, I've been in VR chat rooms, not very busy ones, admittedly, and I experienced exactly the same problem as in real life. Is that I got talking to someone who was very keen to tell me all about something, and I wanted to move on and do something else, but I felt I couldn't because it would be rude. So it felt an awful lot harder to disengage from that conversation than it would in like a chat room or something like that. So I think like VR chat rooms work really well for that sort of thing. We could definitely see something done that way, but I think people are probably less likely to want to spend a full day with a VR headset on, talking to other people. So it would have to be in short bursts, in which case you might as well chop it up and sort of like do a more of a speed dating video call thing where you just like give people a half hour and then force them to like move on to somewhere else.
Yeah, I think 5 minutes is probably better, and then you have like the matching. If you like the person, then you get to have another 10 minutes or something. Half an hour with two people who've got nothing in common. Sounds unpleasant. Okay. So next topic is one of mine. I think VR will reach tipping point this year, and I want to explain my thinking behind this. Okay, now I too was a naysayer when it came to VR, but I'm just working on a game called VR Jetpack at the moment, and I had to get an Oculus Rift, an Oculus Quest, the Oculus Quest 2 for it, and the thing that got me about it, and it's brilliant, it's absolutely great, but the thing that's changed with it is the level of convenience, because the reason why mobile gaming exploded is because you can play it on the toilet or anywhere. So now, like, the majority of gaming I do was on my phone, because I can fit it in those moments between picking up my son, or I do. So it was convenient enough that I actually played it. Now I have the Oculus Rift. I do two things with it that I've never done with the headset that I have before. First thing is, it lives next to my kettle, because in the time that it takes me to boil the kettle, I can play a game of Beat Saber. And it's fantastic. The two match up almost perfectly. So I play it like 3 times a day. And the other thing is me and my partner, we play sort of escape room things together, where one of us will wear the headset and we'll cast it to the telly, and we'll do this thing where we talk through it. So the difference with this generation is the Quest is so much more easy to use. You can literally just pick it up, bang, and you're in. And it remembers where you are. I have a bit of a problem that I keep picking up the wrong hat. I get the left and the right muddled up, which confuses things. But I use it, and I have piles of tech that I've used for a couple of days. It's gone away, but I legitimately use this, and the figures for the sales of it is going through the roof. The games are good, and there isn't enough of them. It might just be part of the lockdown, but I mean, I have a very, very fast computer, and I could play pretty much any game, and I'm playing Beat Saber and escape rooms and idle clickers are the primary games that I play. So that is my case for why I think VR is going to really cut it this year.
So are you saying you would play the Quest on the toilet?
Not yet. Now,
not yet.
Well,
right.
I would watch videos if I knew I was going to be on the toilet for a while, because you can watch the screen and then you have pass through on the side. I reckon I could legitimately just sit there, and you can use your hands as well. But no, not toilet. It's not that convenient. Boiling the kettle is pretty much the lowest.
I've got to say that VR has the potential to be considerably more hygienic if you can use hand tracking, not actually have to touch like a phone screen while you're in the bathroom. That's considerably better. But I'm not that rabid about the technology just yet. But broadly, I agree with you. I don't think that there's going to be a magical tipping point. I think it's just going to sort of like steadily become more and more accepted. And I think part of that is the convenience, as you say, is critical for it to become, to have any hope of like mass market adoption. It's got to be convenient. But also we're now getting to the point where we have worked out in software terms, we've worked out what most of the sensible methods of interaction and locomotion are, and what works in VR and what doesn't work so well. And that now that we've got a lot of the experimental stuff out of the way, like things like Spider-Man demos that were extremely motion sicky, and other things of that ilk, we're now settling down into games that are much closer to standard games. They're not really something that could only work in VR, but they are something that works a lot better in VR. So stuff like Half-Life Alyx it's just a really good sort of like first-person experience, and it doesn't do anything revolutionary, but it just does everything really well. And I think we're going to see a lot more of those. We're going to see a lot more exploration of like VR puzzle games. I've been like you, I've been playing a lot of Beat Saber, the thing about Beat Saber is that you can only play it for a reasonably short period of time before you're tired, but you're still within your headset tolerance limit. So I can maybe get in sort of like 20, 25 minutes of Beat Saber, and while I'm here, I might as well play a bit of The Room or something like that. But I can't wear the headset for more than about an hour straight, tops.
I was going to say, I installed a mod for Beat Saber and it allowed me to do a 1 hour continuous playlist, and that nearly killed me.
I can imagine.
Why?
I'm trying to lose this.
Oh, right. Okay. It's just, this is my life now. I am Beat Saber man.
Yeah, it was an experience that I haven't done again.
How about you, Miguel?
I think VR will grow, but I don't think it's gonna get a revolution just now. I think VR will revolutionize and like literally take over the world when the graphics, or not even the graphics, but the convenience is so insanely good, right? That it's for example like in this Black Mirror episode where you click a button or you just put something on that's like you don't even notice it that you wear it, and it just takes you in this world that looks like this world we are currently experiencing. And like scientists said, or not scientists, but people said you need 8K per eye to achieve like real world graphics, which is interesting. But I think when this is going to happen, especially like horror games, I'm wondering like if people go to court and like sue the companies if the games are too scary because they're like real life horror. I think it's going to happen at some point. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that was one of my. That was the other prediction I toyed with. That we'd have the first VR death this year. Sort of. I got so annoyed with somebody in one of my games that I attempted to punch him and punched a shelf off of the wall. So, yeah, I think it's anyway.
I'm quite surprised that we haven't seen more press about VR related accidents, because I've certainly heard, we've all seen like videos of people attempting to lean on virtual furniture like snooker pool tables or things that don't actually exist. And it's only a matter of time before somebody does that and does themselves a serious injury, at which point suddenly there will be some outcry about whether it's safe or not, which will be unfortunate because by and large it's completely benign. But yeah, I don't know. To your, just sort of with regard to your point, Miguel, about mass market adoption. Yeah, I don't necessarily think it needs to be that good to achieve full mass market adoption, as long as it's convenient, as Ed says. But there's a lot of human activities that it's not that inconvenient to put on a VR headset compared to, say, buying a load of custom clothing and equipment, flying it to another country in order to have a skiing holiday. If the experience is worthwhile, people will make the effort. And I think if there are plenty of high quality VR experiences, and if the experiences get better and the inconvenience gets lower, then we could hit a point where it suddenly becomes like, oh well, why haven't you got one of these?
Yeah,
exactly. In the same way that like the PS1 became this like, why haven't you got a PS1? And that's what took games into the mass market pretty much. There were the 8-bits did okay, but it was the PS1 that really pushed it. And I heard people in circles outside games talking about PlayStation for the first time, and that's when I realized that it had broken into the mainstream.
It's almost like with a desktop computer, right? Where when the first desktop computers appeared, it was quite nerdy and not everyone had one. And the thought that even kids have a computer that is like a million times more powerful in their pocket was like unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it's unbelievable that, I don't know, in 100 years from now, everyone has like a real graphics headset in their pocket. You know, this is like, I can't imagine that, but I think it will happen. I'm very optimistic. Unless we reach like a limit of what's actually possible technologically.
I think the closest thing we got to consumer VR was technically the Nintendo Wii, in terms of like how easy it was that people just grabbed it and played it with their physical movements. I know it wasn't strapped to your head, but and then we saw that in the news as people having accidents using that. But
yeah,
I think that's because it was in every house rather than VR is more, well, it's still more an enthusiast thing. So maybe that's it.
I think once VR reaches that level of intuitive, where it's just pop the thing on and then you can just interact with things with your hands, then
it's ready.
It's pretty much there. I mean, there's I think I've not tried the Quest, to be honest with it. I've not tried any VR with hand tracking. 3 years ago, I tried an experimental one. Difficulty with that was I could pick up objects, but if I looked away from them and looked back, then it had reset. I'm sure that that's being worked on nowadays.
Final thought: what happened to the HoloLens?
Oh, I think it's still around. I think it's quite big. It's just incredibly expensive, and it's used for like industrial things and stuff. That was the last I heard.
I tried one. It was really good, but it was an incredibly narrow field of view. So I felt like it was really good for AR annotation of something. So I can see it being really good in an industrial setting, but rubbish for video games where people will not take the trouble to point their head at something because they want it to be sort of like fun and immediate and so on. Whereas in an industrial setting, what you actually check is like, what does this lever do again? Then you'll be willing to sort of like turn your head to get the field of view in the right place.
That does remind me that, like, I do think there's a lot that could be done with AR, because I mean, when the Oculus has its pass through, it means you can see the world in front of you. It's quite good. It only needs to get a little bit better at like detecting where things are in the world. And then you could have games that you actually played like in your house, where it sort of made things appear in your house, and it would just place the items in there, and you'd have to go and like hunt for things or something like that. And that would be great, because you'd be able to relinquish yourself from the having to stay within a small net, and you'd know where everything was. Because I mean, the Pokemon Go thing was sort of edging towards that. I do think there's some movement there. Anyway, I do wanna do one more quick round, at least try and because we've all come, we're only going to have done one this rate. So, Chris, if you can give us one more.
Okay. My next thought is that we are going to see a lot more games integrating with social media in the form of things like playable screenshots, where the screenshot contains like a pixel strip of invisible metadata that will allow a game to, or rather will allow social media to link that screenshot to the relevant game if you've got it installed, and the relevant level and the relevant coordinates, and so you can just click on a screenshot and be taken into the game at that point. This is something that was pitched, I can't remember whether it was Stadia or one of the other video streaming things were suggesting that they were going to do, because they have because everything's in the cloud for them. So that they have an advantage in doing that. I think that Minecraft has a similar feature now, but I would have to check. But that is the sort of thing that I can see being huge for integrating games with live streams and social media, which is increasingly important, especially now that, as you say, we're not going to be going to big trade shows to see things. People are going to be looking to streamers and virtual word of mouth to find out what's cool and what's interesting.
Yeah, I remember Stadia pitching that, and that's when I thought Stadia was going to be absolutely massive killer, because they were talking about integrating it with YouTube and being able to just like publish a game like you would a YouTube, and it would just stream it. And so like you upload a video, you just upload a bit of your game. And I thought that was just magical and really would be the future. But then Stadia has been nothing but a flop past then. But the integration, I do think if they could get that down, that would be really exciting. What do you think, Joe?
Oh, so I've seen the same thing where they said, oh, you can put a 30-second ad for a trailer, and at the end it says click to play now, and you can play that little demo. But I don't know what it would mean for advertising. Advertisers going to jump on this and create, well, I mean, they already do, I suppose, create playable demos just to sell your product. But I don't know. It's an odd one. I don't know how it would work unless everything was cloud-based.
I think it will. I think everything will be cloud-based soon, especially with 5G.
I'm old-fashioned. I don't want to stream my games.
The time. Start streaming your games on the toilet like me.
I had an OnLive system and that flopped, and I've not trusted it since.
That is an interesting one, actually. I think the whole cloud gaming thing, I think there is a general tendency for things to move into the cloud, but certain things need to be cached locally. But if you switch to fully digital distribution, for example, because I haven't bought a physical game in probably 3-4 years, if you're having to download 50, 80, 100 gigabytes of data before you can play, or I know that most games will allow you to start playing when they've got just the intro bit downloaded now, which goes some of the way towards it. But logical extension of that is just to start playing and just stream everything on demand and cache it all on your machine. And so conceptually, you could play a game all the way through, and if you never visit a particular level, then it never downloads it. You only download the content that you are actually seeing. That would be, and then there's a balance to be had there, I think. But I mean, the amount of stuff that I have downloaded, and then it's sat unused on my hard drive for a little while, and then I've needed space to download something else, so I've deleted it. The amount of wasted bandwidth with like downloading gigabytes of data that I've then thrown away is significant.
You know what's a game that's doing that? It's a very successful game.
Yeah, well,
Flight Simulator 2020 does that.
Yeah, and exactly that's a.
What's my mic not coming through?
It's very quiet.
Joe's gone quiet.
Damn it!
That's better. Better when you're closer.
Right, well, you're going to miss out because I got to move us on. Joe, have you got sound? Can you give us the next one? Well, let's jump to Miguel while you sort it out. Miguel, what's your final hot take?
I'm gonna say this year the new From Software title. Well, it's announced already, but it's gonna get like a trailer and like some proper info. And for anyone who isn't aware, From Software is the company behind Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and the latest game is Elden Ring. And that game is in collaboration with George R.R. Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones, or who wrote the Book of Ice and Fire. So I think there's going to be some big news this year, and maybe even a release date. And I'm very, very hyped for that, because I'm a huge Dark Souls fan.
Do we know anything more about it other than the creators?
There's like a teaser trailer.
Yeah, I watched the teaser, but it didn't give a lot away.
And that's it, like nothing else. And what's interesting is you can see everywhere the news sites go crazy. They're like, we might know what's coming, but they know nothing. They literally know nothing. They just assume. So I'm very, very excited.
He still hasn't written the books. I mean, he still hasn't finished the books. How's he going to finish a game in a year?
The fans are fuming. The book fans. They're like, how why is he working on that stupid game? You know,
he's not a young man.
You should write books.
But he's not going to be doing the same amount of work that he puts into a novel on the game. He's going to be attending a bunch of meetings and throwing out some high concepts, and then From Software will flesh it out. I mean, From Software have got some pretty solid narrative chops anyway. So I think that it's certainly an attractive collaboration, and I'm interested to see what they come up with. I kind of hope that they go for something that's a little more accessible, because I'm too crap to play Dark Souls or Bloodborne. But I love the settings and the lore of those worlds. So I have to content myself with watching YouTube playthroughs. But it'll be interesting.
Probably less masochistic, to be honest. What do you think, Joe? Do we have you? He's frozen. I think we've lost Joe. Oh, and he's gone.
We really have lost Joe.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Well, that's probably a good time then to wrap things up, seeing as we've lost Joe. So
we can probably get a good 40 minutes out of that lot, I reckon.
I think so. But thank you everyone for watching. I hope you're all right, Joe. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Miguel. We will sign off there, and wishing you all a far better 2021 than 2020. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.